Let's talk about insulin resistance. First of all, what is insulin? Insulin is a peptide hormone produced by the pancreas, and essentially it functions as a key allowing the transport of glucose from the bloodstream into cells, where it can be used directly for energy or to be stored as glycogen. All insulin resistance means is that the body becomes resistant to this lock and key mechanism. More insulin is needed to maintain the same level of glucose transport into cells. Over time, as the cells become more and more resistant to insulin, the pancreas has to work harder and harder, eventually fatiguing, reducing its ability to produce insulin. As this happens, glucose slowly builds up in the blood, staying in the bloodstream over a longer period of time, leading to a condition called diabetes. What are some of the risk factors for insulin resistance? Well, I like to split these into non-modifiable, including increasing age, especially over the age of 45, and some genetic factors as well, especially those of Afro-Caribbean or South Asian heritage. There are also some factors that we can change. One of these is a sedentary lifestyle, especially office jobs or those that don't require much movement. Diet also has a great influence, and the high-calorie Western diets that are often highly processed with a high glycemic index and low fiber often worsen insulin resistance. More and more we are seeing evidence that poor sleep can worsen insulin resistance. It must be said that there are genetic influences on insulin resistance. There have been multiple variants and gene loci associated with insulin resistance using genome-wide association studies. Here on the right is a table of the many variants associated with insulin resistance. There's also a variation in ethnic groups, which could be related to how different ethnic groups store body fat. Comparing South Asians to Caucasians, for the same BMI, Asians had a significantly greater proportion of abdominal fat and visceral fat. They also showed greater fasting hyperinsulinemia, suggestive of insulin resistance, as well as greater insulin levels during an oral glucose tolerance test. We are learning more about how visceral fat and insulin resistance are related. There's some debate about whether visceral fat causes insulin resistance or if it's simply an association. However, there have been some studies in rat models where removing visceral fat from the rat models improved insulin sensitivity. However, these animal studies must be taken with caution, as we are not rats. One possible explanation is that visceral fat causes an increase in systemic inflammation and adipokine release. Let's talk about some of the signs. Acanthosis nigricans describes an increase in the velvety, dark textured skin under the armpits and around the neck area, which could be a sign of increased insulin levels in the blood. An increase in the number of skin tags could also signify insulin resistance, especially if these two former findings are associated with an increased waist size or central obesity, which can be suggestive of visceral fat accumulation. The typical benchmark is above 40 inches of waist size for men, but we must remember that this cutoff could be far lower for South Asian and Afro-Caribbean men. The symptoms can be quite varied and non-specific for insulin resistance. People may find that they're more fatigued or that they feel hungry even after they've eaten a meal, often reaching for sugary desserts such as cake or ice cream. Some may often describe difficulty concentrating or brain fog. As insulin resistance worsens and the pancreas fatigues, blood glucose levels rise and diabetes becomes imminent or even present. And one may experience the osmotic effects of increased sugar in the blood, such as increased thirst or needing to go to urinate more often or blurred vision. What can we do to reduce insulin resistance? There is a lot of evidence that physical activity can be beneficial for insulin resistance. My favourite is resistance training, with evidence showing that resistance training, in addition to aerobic training, can provide more benefits than simply just doing aerobic training. Proposed mechanisms have been an increase in GLUT4 receptors as you increase muscle mass, leading to a greater capacity for muscles to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. Indeed, muscle contraction itself may provide a separate pathway where GLUT4 receptors inside of muscle cells can translocate to the membrane, regardless of circulating insulin levels. It's widely accepted that a diet high in processed foods and low fiber can worsen insulin resistance, and evidence has shown that a Mediterranean diet with a lower total quantity of processed food, using whole ingredients and increased fiber, can improve insulin sensitivity. Sleep is another important modifiable risk factor. with evidence showing that even a single night of sleep deprivation can worsen insulin resistance, even in previously healthy subjects. As well as changes to the diet, sleep, and physical activity, some people may need the help of medications to help improve insulin sensitivity, such as metformin and pioglitazone. GLP-1 agonists such as semaglutide and tirzepatide can also help insulin resistance indirectly. I'd like to end this video by reminding you to focus on what you can optimize, never mind genetics. Optimizing your diet, exercise and sleep can do wonders for your insulin sensitivity. It's important to work closely with your doctor, who can provide you with regular checks, looking for underlying root causes, and also, if needed, there is no shame in talking to your doctor about medication that can help improve your insulin sensitivity. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.